evening, everyone. Such an honor to be here today. Talking to people of the most noble profession, teachers. You're going to do me a favor right now. I want you to just give yourselves a pat on the back. Appreciate yourselves right now. Though the society does not appreciate teachers, we appreciate teachers. We are teachers and we appreciate ourselves. Thank you for all you do. I can imagine the kind of day you had today, but you're here still trying to get better at what you do. Well done, well done. God bless you. So, welcome to AAT platform. It's all about teachers. And as the name says, it's actually a platform that is just for teachers. Not for parents, not even for students. It's all about teachers and our professional development. What we're trying to do is to create a supportive community of practice where we can share ideas, learn together, encourage each other, get better at our craft. That's what this platform is about. So, without further ado, I'm going to go to the topic for today. Teaching virtues in the classroom. I can almost hear some of you saying, but why really should I be saddled with the duty of teaching virtues in the classroom? What happened to the parents? Where are they? I can also hear some people saying, I'm just reading your minds, but I can hear some people thinking, okay, schools will say teach virtues. At the same time, they're going to be asking us for 100% pass rate. What time do we have to teach virtues? And then I got this very interesting post on our platform, and I'm going to read it out to you. Please listen to this. This person is actually talking about the society. The lady said, they will mandate us to teach topics like integrity, yet they lack integrity. They've asked us to teach students honesty, yet they are not honest. You instruct us to teach self-reliance, yet you are not reliable. They say that we should teach electoral malpractices, yet you do indulge in it. Sorry, I'm trying to get this. Why mandate us to teach values when you value nothing? Funny enough, each of these topics has the attributes and what have you. You are filled with negative behaviors, and yet you want us to kick out all this from the young ones. It is undoable. How many of us agree with this? So the truth is, there are so many reasons that we can think of why we shouldn't really be focusing on virtues. But fact is, we cannot separate character development and education. We cannot. I'll give you a simple example. We're all teachers. So you're an infant school teacher, and a child in your class, maybe at age 3, decides that she's going to hoard all the toys and will not share. I bet what you're going to say to the child is, no, you have to learn to share. College students, they walk past you without greeting. I can hear the college teacher say, would you come back? What do you say? Or children throwing, dirt on the floor, littering the floor. You ask them to pick it up. That is exactly what I'm talking about. It is so interwoven, character development and education, that they're inseparable. You can't separate them. So, despite all the reasons that we may have, you can't. Let's also remember the books. I'm going to go back to my days. I don't know how many of you use this book, but I'm going to go back to this book. Things Fall Apart, Chinua Achebe. It was a book we used for literature, but a lot of it also talked about virtues. or the lack of it. Okonkwo, the main character in the book, lacked virtues. He was proud, very stubborn man, very fearful. He didn't want to become like his dad. So he did so many things. But we can also contrast with another book that I read and so enjoyed. Cinderella. Cinderella's story is actually the opposite because it showed us a lot of virtues that we could emulate any day. She was humble, she was kind, she served, she was resilient and tenacious. She made sure that at the end she became the wife of the prince. She didn't give up. These are virtues. These are all embedded in the books that we even use. So you begin to see why we cannot have education without character. I'm going to be answering 3 questions, the why, what, and how question concerning virtues. So why are virtues important? Why do we think we should be teaching virtues in our schools? I'm going to say first of all, research has it that there's a direct link between students' achievement and their behavior. Sorry, I'm trying to get my slide to work. There's a direct link between students' achievement and behavior. So you can imagine all the work you put in today and that you put it all through the term. And at the end of it, you get very little out of it because you've not been mindful of the behavior of your children. So that's one of the reasons why we cannot ignore the character of our children. Another reason, I'm going to show this to you. This is another picture that I'm going to show. Can you see this picture? Can anybody make out what this is? It's the picture of a hacker. And this is what happens when you have education without character. You raise very smart children. Very smart. But there's no moral compass. So at the end of the day, they are the ones that are trying to get into your account, into your bank account. They're trying to get into your email account. Because they're smart, but there's no moral compass. So, why do we need to focus on virtues? Because if we don't, we raise delinquent children who will become a problem for all of us in society. Why? I hope you see why it's very important to do that. I'm going to go to the what is virtue question. So, virtue. What is virtue? Virtues can simply be defined, and can we use some definitions here, please? Can simply be defined as uprightness. It can be defined as goodness, the goodness of the man, of the woman. Virtues can be defined as behavior showing high moral standards, and they are the building blocks of character. What am I trying to say? You can say, oh, the man has very good character. He did not become good all of a sudden. It's actually an addition of different virtues, precept upon precept. Kindness here, honesty there, integrity there makes someone to be a good person with good character. So what are virtues? Virtues, uprightness, goodness, upholding high moral standards, and they're the building blocks of character. Now, there are different types of virtue. They can be divided into 4. Most of the time when we're thinking of virtues, we're thinking of moral virtue. Now, what is moral virtue? Moral virtue can be defined as the personal qualities that lead a person to behave in the right manner. They're personal qualities we have, but it helps us behave in a proper and a right manner. We choose good actions and good passions. For example, we are teachers. I'm going to be using a lot of examples that relate to our practice. We are teachers. Is it good action when teachers cheat? for their children so they have good results? Would that be moral standard? Is it a good thing when teachers abuse children? Be it physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, would that be moral standard? So, moral virtues, people that have moral virtues are people who behave in the right manner. They choose good actions and good passions. For example, self-control is a moral virtue. Compassion, kindness, humility, self-discipline, respect, these are moral virtues. Those are the virtues most of us are very used to. But in the 21st century, there are other virtues that have been highlighted. And I go to the second virtue, civic virtue. Civic virtues are people who have civic virtues have personal qualities that lead them to think about the interest of the whole community rather than only their own interest. And I must say something. Moral virtue is what underpins all these other virtues. In Nigeria, for example, we say we have moral virtue, but we don't care about our community. We don't care about the other people around us. We just want to have our own things, have our own big houses, our own cars, our own everything. And yet we say we are moral people. That's not possible. When you have civic virtues, you consider other people, the entire community, as well as your own interest, but also the other people. You don't ignore people and just, follow your own thing. If we have moral virtues, let me ask a quick question. My people, how many of us went to vote? If we really cared, would we actually just lie down at home and sleep? So, civic virtues are very important, and let me also emphasize this. We must begin to teach it to our children in the classroom. Let them begin to see themselves not just as individuals in the classroom, but as part of the community in the class. Very important virtues that we must learn. In fact, if Nigeria is going to get better, we need to all develop civic virtues. That's the advantage the Americans have, actually. They are losing it now with their newest president, but they do have that advantage. They see themselves as a community, as a nation. That's how they see themselves. So another virtue, examples of virtues, by the way, civic virtues would be volunteering. People that have that would volunteer. They would join NGOs. They want to do something. They volunteer in their churches. It's community awareness, neighborliness. On your street, what do we do? What do we do? Citizenship. These are examples of civic virtue. So I've talked about moral virtue, there's civic virtue. I'm going to talk about the third virtue, and that is intellectual virtue. Intellectual virtues, people who have intellectual virtues are people that have the personal qualities that lead to good thinking and learning. They are rational in their thinking. They think correctly. When people have this virtue, it helps both teachers and students to think and react in the right way because they have thought it through. Examples of intellectual virtue will be critical thinking. It will be being curious, reasoning, reflection. Things like that show that you have intellectual virtue. People with intellectual virtue are usually very knowledgeable. But again, moral virtue comes to play even with this, because you can be very knowledgeable, but without the morals, delinquency. Remember the hacker. That is someone who has intellectual virtue, but no morals. So, they become bad people, criminals. The last virtue I'm going to talk about is what we call performance virtue. Now, these virtues, people who have them, have the personal qualities that help them to achieve any set goal. Anything they decide that they're going to do, they're able to do because they have performance virtues. Resilience. They have determination. They're confident. Do you see why it's so important to develop this in our children? How many children of today are resilient? All these are butter children that give up so easily. You know, I can't do it. I don't understand. I give up. How are they going to cope in the world? How are they going to survive in this fierce race, rat race? Performance virtue is so important in the 21st century. As you see, the children that we say have the growth mentality rather than the fixed mentality. That is something we have to develop in our children. Again, it's a secondary virtue because it can be used for good or bad. I can be resilient about something that is bad. Let's think of the elections that we just rounded up. Some people in certain parties were resilient and determined to win. They burnt ballot box, their voters, they burnt votes, they scared people away. They were determined to win. And they won, by the way. So, performance virtue, they got what they wanted, but they've used it in the wrong way. So, performance virtue, again, must be underpinned by moral virtue. So, I've mentioned 4 virtues. Can you go along with me? 4 virtues. 1, moral virtue. Then we have the civic virtue. Then we have the intellectual virtue. And then we have the performance virtue. Now, when these 4 virtues come together, do you know what happens? It's so beautiful, teachers. It creates what is called practical wisdom. When you're able to bring morality into your critical thinking and your reasoning, and you're thinking about other people in the community, and you are determined to achieve, you are said to be wise, but in a practical way, not in the theoretical way. You know what to do in the situation, that any situation that comes up, you know exactly what to do, because all these 4 virtues have come together. And when that happens, these are the people that flourish. They are the ones that succeed. If you have moral virtue, you are a saint, but you cannot reason, you cannot think critically, you are going to remain poor. Or you have intellectual virtue, but you have no moral check, you might succeed for a while, but it will end in destruction. So, when everything comes together, you will find that you will flourish, the children will flourish, our society will flourish. You see why we can't overlook character development and virtues? We have to focus on it, even as we focus on teaching maths and English and science. So I go to the last part, which is how. How then do we teach these virtues in our classrooms? I'm sure you're wondering, okay, so it's important. How does that translate into my practice? That's what I'm going to look into now. I'm waiting for your questions. Any question for now? Anything? Okay, I can see your comments. Please keep them coming. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. So, how to teach virtues in the classroom? We have an acronym called MIRACLE. Can we just say miracle? It's actually an acronym developed by someone called Patricia Beachy. So it's not my idea, that's the person that put it together. But I think it's awesome. Miracle. How do I teach virtues? Use this acronym, miracle. M stands for modeling. I'm going to expatiate on this, but M stands for modeling, I stands for inner curriculum, R stands for reflection, A stands for atmosphere, C stands for curriculum, L stands for leadership, and E stands for ethical vocabulary. So let's go to M. As a teacher, to teach virtues in your classroom, you need to start by modeling it. You don't say, do as I say, not as I do. You say, do as I do it. You need to model it. When you say to your children, can't Can't you greet? Can you just sometimes just surprise them by greeting them? How will you today, Tola? You are modeling the importance of greeting. How do we speak to our children? Do we use abusive words? If we're doing that, is that showing integrity? Is it showing, even when you're angry and we start to abuse, does it show self-control? Does it show discipline? Are we proud? How do we speak to them? How do we present things to them? Do we mock them? We need to be careful, because you can't teach virtues. You're trying to get them to reason, and then you are making fun of them. You have to model. Everything you do, you need to. Do you listen to them? If you listen to them, it shows that you care. That is a virtue. Mahatma Gandhi says something that I really love. It says, you be the change that you want to see. It starts with you and I. So M stands for modeling. Your classroom begin to model these virtues. Inner curriculum is the next thing that you need to address. Now, I want you to begin to address the emotions, the imaginations, the values, the spirituality, even the intuition of the children in your class. Help them to understand themselves better. Help them understand their emotions, their fears. What can you do? I've seen it in some classrooms. You can have maybe like a corner that you put a board or something, and you put there maybe your feelings corner or emotions corner, or how are you feeling today? Encourage your children to go there and paste. They can draw it, how they feel. Could be a smiley face, or a sad face, or a face that shows that I'm neither here nor there today. And at the end of the lesson, or at some point in time in the day, you could approach that child and ask, what's going on? Why are you sad? Let children learn to express themselves. It's very un-African. But that's why we're beginning to see a lot of mental health issues. Because children are not taught to unburden. In fact, even adults. A man would want to, talk or cry. They'll say, but you're a man. Men don't cry. We're expected to just bottle everything in. Begin to encourage your children to share their emotions. You are building in them inner curriculum. When they're self-aware, they know who they are, they accept themselves, they will be able to respond appropriately to other people without hurting them, but they will not also hurt themselves. Or sometimes for sake of peer pressure, they do things they shouldn't do. That's because they don't know who they are. When you address the inner curriculum of the children, they know who they are. They accept who they are, and they can be accepting of other people. R stands for reflection. Can we begin to teach our children to be reflective? Can we, even as teachers, begin to be reflective? We're asked to be reflective practitioners as teachers. Are we really reflective? After your lessons, is there any way that you note your reflections? Even as a human being, as a wife, as a husband, do you reflect? Because you cannot give what you do not have. If you are reflective, you can teach the children to reflect. At the end of the day, instead of just sending them off with a prayer, could you all sit down in your class 2 minutes and tell everybody to just sit back and reflect on their day? Have I bullied anyone today? Have I been nice to my friends today? Have I done my work to a high quality? What have I done today? As you are the teacher, at that same time you can be reflecting on your day. I think it's a very important thing to do. And it's going to help build these virtues. The atmosphere, miracle, M-I-R. A stands for atmosphere. If I came to your school, what would I see on your walls? Would it just be, charts on multiplication table and verbs and things like that? Or would I see anything that shows the values and the virtues you believe in? Would I see anything on behavior? Would I see anything promoting, for example, confidence and determination? Or something showing service? Let there be pictorial images of these things around your classroom and even around your school. It's a constant reminder to the children and the parents and everybody that it's something that you believe in your school. Curriculum. Does your curriculum reflect these virtues? During your assemblies, can the children act plays that would, address moral virtues? Things that would show how children can think critically? How we can help our society? We can do so much. I'm just, touching on some things, but I want you to sit down with your colleagues tomorrow and begin to think of more ideas. On your exercise books in our school, for example, we have all our values at the back. It's a constant reminder that we believe in community, in citizenship, in Christ, and all the other values that we have. Can we build these things into our curriculum, into our methodology? Then we have L in miracle, leadership. Can the leaders model these things? School owners, heads of departments, heads of schools. We're not talking only to the teachers. Can we model virtues? And I round up with E, ethical vocabulary. Let's teach our children the words, the technical words. Can we begin to teach them about intellectual virtue and civic virtue? Can we discuss and define the meanings of these things with our children? Can we use this for assembly stories, songs? Can we have specific lessons in civic duties and things like that? Let the buzzwords begin to be used in your schools. So these are the just some ways we can teach virtues in our classroom. We're going to do a quick plenary. So we started by looking at the importance of character education and formal education, that we cannot separate them. We then looked at what virtues are, and I mentioned that they means uprightness, goodness, and behaviors that are of high moral standard. I also mentioned that we have 4 types of virtues. Can we go together? We have moral virtue, we have civic virtue, we have intellectual virtue, and we have performance virtue. And when these 4 come together, they produce what is called practical wisdom, which is what will help our children and us to flourish and to be successful in the 21st century. We also looked at ways of teaching virtue in our classrooms. Acronym MIRACLE. M stands for together, modeling. I stands for the inner curriculum. R stands for reflection. A stands for atmosphere. C stands for the curriculum. L stands for leadership, and E stands for ethical vocabulary. Have we learned anything today? I pray we have. I didn't get any questions. Are there questions here? Thank you, Adola. Thank you for liking this webinar. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Mr. Tola. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Kenny Fred. Very thought-provoking, you're right. I'm going to assure you, please keep the questions coming. We have to round up now, but I'd like you to just keep the questions coming. And I promise you, within 24 to 48 hours, you will get a response from us. God bless you. Look out for our next webinar. It's coming up around in about 3-4 weeks. Please be ready for a wonderful time on the AAT platform. God bless you. Bye.